no, my name is not going to appear. And it's just going to say library staff instead. But maybe you've set up your list before where actually maybe each department has a different account and creates their list with their account name. So maybe it's important to know where a list was set up by the account that's called children's section, for example, where it would be, in this case, you probably would want the list offer to still show. Right, so I'm just creating my list. You can see I've got the option to add a description as well, which would appear in the search results. And I'm just creating a list here. So I've really just created the list and there's nothing in here yet. So when I click in it, I have several options, and the one I'm interested in, because it's a set list of books, I want to add multiple titles. And here I can just paste a list of ISBN or a list of titles. So I've prepared a list of titles here. As I said, it's a specific collection. I know exactly which books should go in here. So you see, I've got just over half a dozen. And I'm going to click Add to List. There they go. I've got 8 titles. 8. I'm just counting my list. Yes, I did have 8 that I pasted in, and they've been found directly into Aspen. So it's really quick to do it that way. I do have other options for my list. So when I created the list, I had the search. For example, if I'm changing my mind, I can go into edit. Maybe now's the time to add a description. And it's also where I can upload a list cover. So you can either create your own and then upload your image here, or if you don't, Aspen is going to generate a thumbnail with using the book covers from the titles in the list. I don't really want to upload a specific cover here because I think the book title are going to look really good. I'm just going to click update to add my description. I did make my list searchable, so I'll do it a bit later, but it does mean that if I switch to my list search here, that list is going to come up. I mentioned earlier also about emailing it. I've got the option to print from here to export it in a separate format, but here's my list. I created it by pasting my titles, but often we are going to want to add to this list. It's going to grow. Some new titles are going to arrive, just been ordered maybe. So I can just look for my new titles by searching for them. And in this case, I'm just looking through the library catalog. I know this title has just arrived, just been processed, still have a new label. And I can also add to my list from here. So underneath, I've got the gray button here. And I'm just selecting the list. I was just in the middle grade book, so it's the one that's selected, but otherwise it would appear in my drop-down list here. I could also create a new list from here because actually maybe I started from a search instead of starting from my account. So this is where you directly create a new list, and those titles you've hit that button on would just be directly added. Here I'm just adding the one, so I'm choosing my list and saving to list. And it's done. So now when I look at this title, it does say it appears on my middle grade books list. So it's really nice also for people who found the title first, and they can just go directly to the list and see the whole collection. Okay. I'm just checking if everybody is still following, but it looks like that's fine. Yes, that's a really important question I've just seen coming through. Is can another staff member add to your list? So yes, there's a permission for that. Where, this is where I need to check what the permissions are called exactly. And maybe somebody else is going to tell me because I can never remember out of the top of my head.
There is a permission, I think it's like edit all lists.
Yes. I'll have to switch account to show you that because I don't think I have access to the permissions on this one. But it is permission based. And in this case, it means I would be able to add title to another colleague's list, for example. So you don't have that problem of whoever created the list is the only person who can make changes. It can be shared across the team. It doesn't matter who is the original list owner. I'll check that at the end. We can come back to that if we need to show it. Right, so I've got my list, as I said. Hopefully by now it's been indexed and I can see it in my list search. Yes, no, not yet. Yes, it is. It's just there at the bottom and it hasn't actually yet generated my thumbnail, but it is going to do that when a bit later. So it does mean if I am looking for maybe books for the summer for young readers, that's going to be able, that's going to come up in my search results. But even more interestingly, I can do a lot of things from my list. So the first thing I want to do from my list is use it to create a browse category. Browse categories are the big headers you get on this page. So it may be your homepage, or maybe your library has decided to have a web page as their homepage, and that's just in another tab. But these headers and then the titles coming up underneath with the covers, that's what we call browse categories in Aspen. And it's really similar to, again, in person, if you were wandering the shelves and you're seeing all the nice covers up front on the top of the shelf. So that's kind of the equivalent. So from my list, I will be able to create a browse category by clicking Add to Browse. And I need to give it a name. So I'm going to call it exactly the same thing as my list. I'm not going to bother about subcategories for now, but I will come back to that later. And I can directly add it to my home page. So it starts showing straight away. So I'm creating this category. And it's been done. So I'm just going to check my home page here. And here we go. I've got my middle grade books, and it's showing only the titles that were on my list. Ooh, and I've got one who doesn't have a cover. The next thing I want to do is actually, I want another browse category, but this time not from a list. The other great way of creating a browse category is from a search. So I'm going to start with a blank search. I'm not typing anything at the top. I'm looking at keywords in the library catalog. And I'm still thinking about my summer reading challenge and young readers. So I want to create a browse category for picture books. And I know in my library, I've classified that as an item type. So I'm going to open item type. It's not showing here, so I'm going to click more. And on this pop-up, I do have my picture books here. So now I am seeing all the picture books. If I needed to narrow that search further down, I could use the other filters. But here I'm happy with just using the item type as the search parameter. And in my search tools on the top right, so it may appear on the top right, it may appear as a button for you at the bottom. I've got this with sort of setting to use the search tool, so I've got them there. And here I have also the same button I had on the list, which is Add to Browse. And again, it's asking me, do I want to create a new category or not? So I am going to create a new one. And this one is called picture books. And again, I'm not looking at subcategories, but I'm adding to the homepage straight away. So I'm starting to have a lot of things on my homepage. I started with 2 browse categories, and now I've got 4. So my middle grade books and my picture books. And the more you use categories, the more headers you're gonna have on the top. So a great thing to do is to organize them by using subcategories. There are different ways you can do this. So I started by creating my categories, and now I'm going to actually make them subcategories, but you can kind of do it the other way around. And again, if you check the Aspen Help Center, it explains the different way you can do it. So I did say I had those 2 picture books and middle grade books, and actually I now want them to be subcategories of a bigger one that's going to be children's books. So this time I am going to go in my administration settings and look for my browse categories. So I'm just going to use this, oops, not this search, this search. And straight away, I can see I've got options in local catalog enrichment. So the one I want to visit first is the browse category groups. And this is where what I see on my browse categories page is going to be managed. So I've got only one, but if you're in a consortium, you probably have more than one because you probably have one for each of your Aspen instances. Right, so what do I see? I have several, actually have more than I see on my page, and I'll explain why. But this is where I can really manage how each browse category is showing on my page, how long they're showing for, which is what's happening with this one. So I don't currently have my fiction one, and it's because I have an end date in my fiction one. It was actually conveniently showing until yesterday. So this is where you can manage. And also it means if I want to have that fiction one pop up again, maybe in the autumn, I can put a new start date and a new end date as well in there straight away and not worry about it. And you can see it's got some subcategories in it as well. But I'm not here to edit this one. I'm here to create a new one. So let's go back to local enrichment and browse category groups. Got a bit lost there. There we go. This is where I want it to be. So this is where I can add a new one, which I'm going to call picture books. Here we go, not cats and dogs. Ooh, and actually I'm realizing I'm doing this the wrong way around. So let's do it. Yes, I am doing it the wrong way around. Okay. So this is where I would add another one to my kind of top level, but it does only show me existing one. So I need to create one first. So I'm going to do the same as before. And create a new one. Okay, so I am going to try and do it from here instead. And this is where I realize I can't do it from here either. So instead, I switched to browse categories. I was in browse category groups with higher header, and I'm looking at browse categories here. And now I can create one. So I am going to call it children books. I do want it to belong to the main library. Again, if you're working in a consortium setup, you'll probably have to select the correct library you want this to appear in. And this is, again, where I can decide where it's starting and showing. If I don't put anything here, it should show straight away, fingers crossed. I will double check that. And I can also create subcategories here straight away. So I can just select them again from existing ones. So this time I want picture books and I want middle grade books. There we go. So I'm going to save that and return. So if I go on my homepage, it's actually not showing yet because I need to actually add it to my browse category groups setting. And I obviously need to save those two. I don't want to see them anymore because they'll be subcategories. So now I go back to my browse category groups. And if you get confused, don't worry because you saw I just got confused as well between the two. So you go into edit and this is where the magic happens. So this time when I add new, I want to add my children books. There they are. And I also want to get rid of my middle books and picture books. So I can, I'm going to save that first. I'm going to delete the picture books and middle books. So it's not deleting the browse categories, just removing it from actually this group, the fact that they're existing as a header. Okay, so the other thing I can do from here is change the order. So maybe I don't want the children books to be the last one. I want to be the middle one. So I can just click and drag and drop them. Here, this is also where I can double check where these apply, and these will be seen in all the locations associated with my main library. So I'm going to save my changes and then refresh my page. I'm Okay, so this time, as I said, I've got my 3 new in stock children books. I still have my widely financed series. Children books is in the middle, and I do have my subcategories. So don't worry if it looked a bit complicated, it's actually not. Sometimes what I do, because I find it easier, is I create an empty category called children books. So I create it first. And as soon as I add subcategories, that's going to overwrite whatever was appearing when children books didn't have any subcategories. So if you're like me, you probably might find it easier to do it that way as well. So just create any browse category that's going to be your top header, and then just create the others as subcategories. And I could keep adding subcategories again if I did a search and selected a different item type. As an example, I think if we wanted maybe the maps, again, as an example, then I would just be able to hit my search tool, create Spotlight, and this is where I can say, actually, it's not Spotlight, add to browsers, what I was talking about. This is where I would update an existing one. So I say, okay, I want it to be another subcategory of, so this is, okay, I'm really sorry, talking about the wrong thing, and I can see Morgan laughing. This is where I can update an existing browse category. So if I decided actually my children books one, or even my picture books, I want to do it differently. Maybe I want my search to be a bit more narrow. So I'm adding filters, so I could update it that way. So this is what I'm doing here by clicking update category. Thank you. It's things you realize quickly when you hit a button, it doesn't quite have the effect you're expecting, like, oh, yes, it was the other one. So just to recap on browse categories, it's all in the local catalog enrichment module, and you've got 2 sections. So any browse category you create, they're all listed under the section just called browse categories. And you can do a lot actually in there already. And then which categories actually show on your browse category page, this is all managed through the other one, which is called browse category group. So that's probably easier to think of it that way. Are there questions from really confused people about browse categories? If not, I will move on to collection spotlight. So again, collection spotlight, browse categories, more thinking about kind of displays or just wandering through a library. And collection spotlight, they're going to have something similar, but they look more like carousel. So just here's an example of a library using them. So they're not using the browse categories as their homepage. They've got them in another tab. So they're using a custom page for their homepage. And this is a browse category, no, a collection spotlight, sorry, that they've created from events. Then they have more collection spotlight from what's new in their collection, and more specifically also about picture books. So these are all examples of collection spotlight. And you can create collection spotlight pretty much the same way as you can create a browse category, which is either from a list or from a search. And that's why I also managed to click on the wrong button earlier, because those 2 buttons are almost always next to each other. So if I went back to my list, the one about middle grade books, on here, I also have the option. So on the right, if I want to add to browse category, or in the middle, if I want to create a collection spotlight. So let's create one from here. I am creating a new one. So I will call it again middle grade books. So I know what it refers to really easily. And I'm just creating a spotlight. It looks like this when I create it, and it probably doesn't tell me much about it. So you've got that really handy preview button at the top, and it says, okay, this is what it's going to look like with those options. So I do have my carousel with my books, I've got some arrows at the end to navigate, and it says middle grade books at the top. So I can sort of change some of those options if I go into edit. I can again add a description if I need. I don't have a lot of titles in my list, but if I did, I may have to make a decision about how many should show. And that's going to be most useful if you create from a search rather than a list. A list, usually it's a finite number. And I've got different options on how it should show. Should it show the title? Should it show the author? Should it show the ratings? I've got different styles, so I'm using the default one here. But if you want it to show vertically, then you've got styles that are more adapted to that. You can decide how big the cover are going to be. And you can decide whether you want a little title bar, which is what I had with the name of the carousel. You can also decide whether it's going to display the cover sort of side by side or more like a list of results. So I'm going to keep it as list here. And this is what it's showing. So this is really handy because you can also create carousels with more than one tab. So instead of having several carousels, one under the other, you can have one that people can just switch tabs to view different selections. I'm just going to save my changes here. And this time I want to use my collection spotlight. So typically you'll be using that either on your library website, and for that you'll probably be copying the code. So I'm just scrolling down and I can just copy this here. Or in Aspen, you can paste this also directly into a basic page. Or if you're using custom pages, you don't need to copy and paste the code. So let's look at a basic page as an example. I've got some test pages here. So if I want to add a new carousel to this page, I can just edit my page and maybe add a row at the bottom. And so I'm talking about all of these web builder elements, like you all know about it, but if you don't, there's an Aspen Academy session about web builder that's going to tell you all about custom pages. So I'm adding an element, but I don't want it to be a text on image. I want to add my collection spotlight. So when I select collection spotlight, I can then just select the one I want and then save here. So just as easy as that, I have added my collection spotlight to my page. So on Aspen custom pages, it's really quick and easy. You may have some basic pages, in which case you'll want to just copy the code and do the same on your library website. I created my collection spotlight from a list, but as I said, you can also do it from a search. So I could do exactly the same thing as I've done before for my picture books by selecting my parameters. So here again, just an item type. And again, in my search tool, I'll have that create spotlight option. So this is where if I want to add a new tab, I can, instead of creating a brand new one, I could say, okay, add it to this one. And if I do want to create it, not replace it, I would add another one like this. Okay. So now when I look, so it's brought me back to the page for collection spotlight. I haven't mentioned it, but you probably spotted the collection spotlights also live in the local catalog enrichment module. So if you need to check all your list of collection spotlights, you can do it from there. And here I can see I do have two listed, so it's still called middle grade books, but actually within it, there's middle grade books and picture books. And I can still preview it. And here, so it's not so obvious because of my background, but I do have two tabs and I can switch to picture books here. So if I go back to my custom page, It has actually also updated. I haven't had to do anything. I just refreshed the page, and I do have my 2 tabs from my picture books and middle grade books here. So it's really easy. You update, add tabs, and you don't have to do anything. It's already been updated elsewhere. Okay, so just going back to my settings for the collection spotlight. So I think there's a quick question about using CSS or JavaScript. So you can add some CSS. So there is a special field for that here. So yeah, you can make them look, so there are quite a few options built in Aspen, but if you want them to make, to be even more customized to your site, you can do that as well. Right, collection spotlight and add to browse. So we've seen both. And those were really targeted at what's coming through mostly the library catalog. As I said, you can also create some, like Sefton Libraries did, if you've got events plugged into your Aspen site, you can also use those options for events. But you're more likely to use them for results for your library catalog. The next thing I want to talk about is something that's usually not in library catalog. And it's going back to what I was saying about, are you sure all your collections are in Aspen? Because if people look for them, you want them to come up in the results. And one of those things is web resources. So you probably subscribe to a lot of websites like databases or subscriptions to those external sites. So again, with some very UK examples, often public libraries here, they'll have things like something to practice for your driving theory test, maybe something to learn languages, and maybe some resources for people starting businesses. So all those, there will be external databases, and often there isn't a bibliographic record for those in the catalog. So the best way to highlight those collections is to use the web resources. And that means that if I do type a keyword, they're going to appear alongside my search result. I'm just going to show you another site as a different example. This one again has chosen to have a custom page as their home page. So I'm interested in family history, maybe start to understand better what my ancestors did. And here they are using the combined search. So they've renamed it everything, but it is the Aspen combined search. So I'm seeing results in blocks. So I'm seeing results from the library catalog, and I do have some books about researching my family history, but I have some library websites, and those 2 top results, they are coming from my web resources. So I can see there are 2 resources I can use, Ancestry and Find My Past. And these are online resources, so I'll need to actually go to a different website. If I click on there and log in with my library card. So how do you do that in your Aspen site? So that is under here, and it's going to be in Web Builder. What you can use as well in Aspen is, as soon as you add a web resource in the web builder, you can use the page that Aspen generates for you. So I've linked to it from this link here. And it looks like it's a bit bare, it's a test site, but I'll show you some more interesting ones in a moment. Actually, let's look at one now. So there are also loads of examples out there, and I expect you'll have really good examples as well. So this is an academic library, and this is what their web resources page looks like. So they've decided which ones they wanted as featured resources. And I'm going to talk about that, but they've also really customized their categories to match the different departments within the college. So it's more relevant to students. They know straight away if they are doing a course that's got to do with healthcare, they can just open this category and have all the relevant online resource. So back to our web resources. I can just really easily create a new one. So in this example, I am actually a library that's subscribed to a website called Language Online. I'm going to give it a URL, just it's a fake result, so let's give it any URL, but I can add a logo. So we can do that as well. So it opens up my list of files. I can select the logo or any other image I might have chosen to make. I can decide whether it's going to appear at the top of my web resources page, whether people need to be in the library to use it. I want to definitely add some more information about this resource. So the first one, the teaser, is actually what's going to appear in search results, whereas the second one is the full description is what appears when people actually click on that title. You can see I've got options to format my text a bit. So I'm just going to add some bullets for here so it looks a bit neater. And I can decide which audience and which categories those belong to, and those are used in the facets for your web resources. So it's usually quite useful to use. So here it's quite broad, but it's mostly going to be for adults. I can also, as I said, select a category so that they appear neatly arranged underneath. So here it's definitely fits under languages and culture, and I want to apply it to my main library. Oh, thanks for the other example of web resources. So I've just added my languages online. It's a bit small, but you will see it on my page here. So when I refresh, there it is. And when I open my languages and culture category, which wasn't there before because there wasn't actually any web resource allocated to it, it appears there. And that's what it looks like with a full description. It does mean when I look for languages, and again, I use the combined results search. So this will be indexed. I've got a lot of things in my combined results search. It will be indexed and it will appear. And when it's indexed, I've just created it, so it's a bit too early, but under my partner websites section, or however you've called the section of the combined search that brings in the web pages. Right. I'm just going a bit quick because I realize it's already we already have only 15 minutes late, and I just want to show you one last thing. And the last thing is, again, in the library you have posters. In Aspen you have placards. So placards are brilliant, and you can use them in different ways, again, to highlight your collection. So just an example from another library here. So if I go to this library, and let's say I'm interested in role-play games, so also known as RPG. So I'm just looking to see what this library has about RPG. And what I get is a placard, which in so many words explain that, yes, I can borrow RPG starter packs from the library because it's part of their board game collection. And when I click on these placards, I actually go to a list that the library team has created with the starter kits in the board game collection and some books that are also about running role-playing games. So this is a placard. You can obviously use placards like here to highlight collections, but also to highlight events. So I'm going to show you how you could create one. I'm just going to show you actually another example here so that I don't have to create two. So I'm looking for books by Cory Doctorow in my catalog. And I do get a placard as well telling me about an event with Cory Doctorow that's happening on Tuesday. And how I created that, it's simple. I went in my administration. I looked for placards. There we go, still in the local catalog enrichment. And so I have a start and end date, very useful for events, so that it doesn't keep showing after the event has actually occurred. I've got the option to make it dismissible so that it's going to come up for a lot of searches, when people can dismiss it and say, yeah, I've seen it. Again, it's just some text with a bit of formatting, and I've added an image which appears on the side. Like before, you can add as much CSS as you want to make it look a bit more customized to your library. And the thing with Placards is it works based on searches in the library catalog search. So you have to enter keywords that are going to trigger that placard to appear. So here I've got the author's name, I've got one of the titles that people might be searching for that he has written, but I could add as many as I need in this list. So let's create a new placard that's more to do with actually, it's not quite highlighting the collection, but more to do with library activities. But this time, I'm going to create it as a full image rather than some text and image. So I'm going to create one, and that's why it's related to the web resource I've just created. It's just because I want people who search for this resource or how to learn a language, that there are also things happening at the library, like the conversation group. So I wanted to start from today, and actually I'm not going to set an end date because that group is definitely happening on a regular basis. So for the other one, I had entered some text and I had loaded an image, but for this one, I want the full placard to be an image I've created before. So I'm going to ignore the previous fields and just upload my image. Okay, I've uploaded it. Obviously, I want some alt text in here. And I can't remember what's on my image. I think it says this on my image. So that even if I am using something that helps me read the screen, if I'm sight impaired, then I will be able to know what that image actually says. I want to link my image to more information about my event. So again, let's use any hyperlink. So probably you'll have a page on your website or maybe an event registration link. And I want to add words to make sure that people are going to find it. So probably people will be looking for German. Maybe they'll be looking for learn language. Maybe they'll be looking for conversation. Any search terms you think people might use and they would be interested in this particular event or resource. I need to decide which language this should appear. So my image is as text in English, so I want it to appear to people who use Aspen in English. And again, I'm just selecting all my locations. Yeah, I'm just checking, and yeah, there are questions, thanks Morgan, about trigger words and what happens if the same trigger word is used in two different placards. So yeah, that's an important thing to think about, is for your keywords to be unique. So I've saved my German conversation group placards. So when I look for German, if I want to learn German, in my library catalog now I have my placard appearing at the top, and then I'll have books about German. The placards will only appear in the library catalog search. So if you're using the combined search, then that won't appear on the actual combined search screen, but it will appear if you, from the combined search, go back to the catalog results, then it will be there. And here, just can be aware of why you should really think about all your collections. In my explore more, I will have web pages. So, and again, in my web pages, there will be my web resources about learning languages. So this is how you can kind of make sure everything links together, and there are always somewhere in Aspen that refers back to another part of Aspen with other elements where it also reinforces your message about which collections you're highlighting or which resources you're highlighting. So that was, oh yes, I think I mentioned dismissing placards earlier, and I didn't actually do that. Was it on this one? Let's go back to editing my placards here. So maybe I am looking for things about German quite a lot. And I have had comments from library members saying it's annoying to see that German conversation group placards all the time. So if I make it dismissible, I will have an option to just ignore it. So don't show this again, but it means next time I search for German on here, I won't actually again see that there is a conversation group because I know I have seen it. Okay, so that's kind of a lot of things about placards following on straight away from web builders. So yeah, the other thing and kind of the last idea for here is about using your theme. So there was a question about CSS and JavaScript. So it's thinking what other elements are in Aspen that you can use to highlight collections. And you probably spotted when I was on this library that they use their theme to promote their summer events, their summer programs for children. And they change their theme regularly depending on what they have on. So you can go there almost every month, and well, maybe not the summer, I'll probably keep this until September now. But there will be a different theme that will show what's going on at the library. And using your theme and your all your skills in CSS, or even just a bit of basic graphic design with some easy tools like Canva. For the web builder, the web resources, that's also a really nice thing to do to make it look more yours as well. So here I just uploaded some logos, but maybe you want, first of all, make sure all your images for web resources are the same size. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it looks really good if they're all different shapes and sizes. So having them all the same size is really nice. And the other thing I've seen libraries do, which looks really good, is have a kind of standardized style for those images. So maybe there'll be kind of a colored frame or a similar background, and on which you apply the logo for the resource. And that's also make them look really nice. So you use them most of your theming options. If you know a bit of CSS, use them also for your placards. Definitely different ways to highlight collections that are already there, that you already created elements for, but just make them pop a bit more. Is there any other questions? I said earlier I was running out of time, and now I've gone so quickly. We actually have 5 minutes. So was there anything, Morgan, you've seen that you thought I should show again?
See any other questions in the chat? So if anyone has questions about anything that Aude has talked about, definitely type them out. Let's see. I feel like you've covered it pretty well.
So yeah, if you want to, that was kind of a quick tour. So if you need to look at those options again, do look on the Aspen Help Center how to maybe set up browse categories. You'll find the whole browse categories section. And it does explain the differences between browse categories and browse category groups, for example, and then how to manage your browse categories. So all that information is there. So you can have it side by side when you decide now's the time to create more of those.
All right. Sure, there's no other questions from anybody? We got the experts here. This is your time. All right. Well, we can go ahead and wrap up then. Aude, thank you so much. This was a wonderful presentation. I know everyone here appreciated it. And if you are interested in next month's session, Andrew from PTFS Europe will be presenting on the Aspen user experience. So if you go to the Aspen Academy page, I'm linking it in the chat. It's the second one there right now, the user experience. It's Tuesday, August 20th. Same time. So be sure to register for that if you're interested. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Have an amazing day. Talk to you
Bye.
later. Bye.
Bye.